Hey, everybody, welcome back. This is Richard Sachs. This is Lost Arts Radio. It's nice to be with you again. We have a treat that we've been waiting for a while tonight, and this is our friend Dr. Gabriel Cousens, who's now overseas in Israel and is working all over the world, as he has been for years, working on teaching people how to heal from diabetes and principles of degenerative disease and healing and living foods and a lot of spiritual aspects that go with the whole thing. Basically life transformation and renewal as I see it, and he can correct me if I didn't say that right, but we're going to be talking to him between Arizona, where I'm sitting, and in Israel, where Dr. Cousens is. So listen, the internet connections are not necessarily great, and they may go in and out, so I hope you guys will be patient with us a little bit. Since this is recorded, we will re-record any parts and try to make this as uniform as possible whenever needed. So that's what's going on. And we're going to talk tonight about juice fasting, which is a form of detox and getting ready for another chapter of renewal, and spiritually, physically, and on various other levels. And we get a chance to talk about that specifically tonight. So welcome, Dr. Cousens, and it's really a treat to have you here. Thank you.
It is a joy to be on your program, as usual. I love the work you're doing, and I want to include Doug in that, because you're a team there.
That's right.
And I want to honor him. He's behind the scenes a little bit. But yes, it is a joy to share, and it's important. Before we start, though, I'd like to do a little prayer, and it has to do with merging the heart and the mind. And we actually call it Hukmah Halev, wisdom of the heart. What's the wisdom of the heart? It's wisdom is how to live as a full, awake human being. Okay? Wisdom of the heart. So this is what this prayer is about. L'shem Yikud Kudushabri Hu Ushinate Bi'il Imulaiha Chimyuki Bavavke. Amen. So feel that wisdom of the heart, merging of the heart and mind happening.
I like that.
Yeah, we need a wise heart. Okay.
For everything, actually. I can't think of any place that wouldn't apply.
Yes. And it's kind of a multi-level understanding of things. And it's also how to live your life in a way that every moment is an opportunity to wake up spiritually. That's the wise person. Whatever the situation is, how do we wake up spiritually? So that's our idea. It leads right into spiritual fasting, not just fasting, spiritual fasting, because it is a restart, and it helps us break out of our bond, so to speak, that we get programmed into, and they amplify our own tendencies to go to sleep in life. And spiritual fasting is about waking up. So one of the things, though, is it's activating our soul connection. And one of the classic things is dancing. So in the year 1802, about 220 years ago, roughly speaking, things were very, very bad in Russia. So they came to this rabbi and asked him what to do. And he said, dance. Why? Why dance? Because it brings spiritual joy. And no matter what's happening, the power of spiritual joy keeps you connected to the divine. So we're going to dance for 3 minutes, a little Brazilian music, and just, you'll see it. I'm going to take my shirt off here. I can't see as well on this, but we will move it around and get the music playing for 3 minutes. And then you'll guide me as to what you can see and what you can't see.
Há tanto tempo eu vinha me procurando, quanto tempo tempo faz, já nem lembro mais. Sempre correndo atrás de mim feito louco, tentando sair desse meu sufoco. Eu era tudo que eu podia querer, era tão simples, eu custei pra aprender. Daqui pra frente nova vida eu terei, sempre ao meu lado bem feliz eu serei. Eu me amo. Eu me amo, eu me amo. Não posso mais viver sem mim. Como foi bom eu ter aparecido nessa minha vida tão tanto sofrida. Já não sabia mais o que fazer pra eu gostar de mim, me aceitar assim. Eu que queria tanto ter alguém, agora sem mim eu não sou ninguém. Longe de mim nada mais faz sentido, pra toda a vida eu quero estar comigo. Eu me amo, eu me amo. Não posso mais viver sem mim. Eu me amo, eu me amo. Não posso mais viver sem mim. Foi tão difícil pra eu me encontrar, é muito fácil de amor.
Okay. I hope we're getting warmed up here.
Yeah, I'm disappointed you stopped. I thought maybe we should just switch the whole show to that. It's a little bit different energy than people think of with a doctor who's supposed to be really somber, no emotion, really stern, and telling you what you're going to die from. And that's really their main job.
Okay, so I'm going to just, Richard, start with a little bit of discussion about spiritual fasting as I see it. Now, just a background, I've been doing fasting since 1983. That's a while ago.
Yeah.
Okay. So I did a 40-day fast, and I didn't have food or water for the last 3 days.
Okay.
38, 39, 40. And I learned about fasting that way. I didn't really start leading fasting retreats until about 1988, roughly speaking, and then did it in different places, and then developed what I call spiritual fasting.
And that 40 days was a water fast, not a juice fast, right?
Well, a little mix of water and then just juice for the second, just water for the second 20 days. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Nothing for the last 3 days.
Right.
Okay. But our juice fast, our fast, as I design it to make it more workable for people, is juice, only green juice, diluted in half.
Okay.
You got the advantage of a little bit of nutrient, which worked well for people, but a little bit of the advantage of a water fast. Now, I can't tell you that a water fast is more of an advantage. I know it's stronger, but in the big picture, I'm not sure you get necessarily better results. But I do know that when people do water fasts, they can get pretty weak.
Yeah.
I've done a 21-day water fast, and I was able to do 100 push-ups at the end on day 21. So, but I felt weak, and I felt that I did lose a lot of weight. So I didn't think that was really the best way to go.
Okay.
For mostly the general public. Because I wanted, and I do want, because we still are doing fast, people to feel good and whole and exuberant, okay? So, and when people do water fast, there's a tendency to get very weak, end up just lying in bed,
Right.
particularly if you've been toxic. So that isn't what I did, okay? And I've done, as I say, a 21-day water fast too, to really explore it. But that's kind of the overview of it. But I went to this green juice diluted in half because I didn't want people to get a lot of sugar. So a lot of people do fasting with fruit juices and things. One of the things I used with fasting is treating type 2 diabetics and resting the pancreas. So having a lot of sugar is not really a good idea. That's why I dilute the juices in half. And we've been doing it now for, in a regular way since 2004. Regular meaning twice a year, a 7-day juice fast, and then a day or so to come off with a lot of teaching. So, and we also, before I get to the benefits of fasting per se, we also are doing meditation twice a day and awakening of the spiritual energy, which in the East is called Kundalini. In the West could be Ruach HaKodesh or Holy Spirit. It's awakening of the energy within every person. So what makes spiritual fasting, which is what I'm talking about, different than regular fasting? Intent. Intent is everything. So our intent is about waking up. Our intent is about connecting to our souls. What we see in today's world, there's such a level of input, and I'm going to use that word, that people start to lose connection with their souls because everything is outer directed. And so our focus is go inward, and meditating and being by yourself, being quiet, but having some social connection, where we have Q&A and we have group meditation, things like that, to keep that flow going. But the key here really is what Gandhi said. He said, all fasting, this is Mahatma Gandhi, all fasting is a yearning of the soul to merge in the divine essence. Now, that articulates it very, very well. Paracelsus, the great medieval physician and alchemist, said, fasting is the greatest remedy. Hippocrates, everyone has a doctor in him. We just have to help them in their work, to help that person. So what I'm saying is fasting is probably one of the oldest healing techniques in the world, and it's been used for healing, but it's usually in ancient times used as part of a spiritual quest. So I think it's important that we understand that fasting wasn't all about detox as it's promoted today, but really as a spiritual quest. So as I studied the ancient masters, and we go back to Plato and Hippocrates and Socrates, and prior to that, the ancient rishis, they all did spiritual fasting. That's the key concept, because it helped them get more in touch with their soul, and it cleared the toxins from the brain in a way that makes your mind much, much clearer, even after 7 days. Our usual flow, the first day or two, is more a detox experience, and then you start to feel good by day 5, 6, and 7. When the toxins, the bile toxins, are coming out of the brain, your mind really gets much clearer. So that's a pretty important principle I'm sharing, is that this is not a new idea. This has been going for at least 5,000 years and probably much longer, used in most different cultures around the world. So we're just learning from history to see what these great spiritual beings did and philosophers did in the whole in the bigger picture. And it wasn't just the Greeks. I just mentioned them. They did fasting in Egypt. A lot of the I'll say prophets also fasted. So everybody kind of knew what fasting was so important from it. So what does fasting mean? So the way I talk about it is 4 levels. It basically means stay away from anything that's toxic to you. So we have physical toxins, which is food, junk food, that kind of thing. Emotional toxins, mental toxins, and spiritual toxins. So if we look very closely at our society, you can see people are being overloaded by physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual toxins. Overloaded. So we have continued, even though we can't meet like we usually do, but we are doing fast over the internet because it's so important in this very difficult time in the world. So we have international fasts, and actually the next one's coming up April 26th. It's 7-day spiritual fast. We're meditating twice a day. We have discussions. And we reach people all over the world with it, which means having multiple discussions and meditations to meet the different time zones. But it's worth it because it's that important. It's that important. So abstaining from anything that's toxic. And again, you don't have to have a big imagination to understand that's more than just bad food. Now, what else does fasting do? On the physical, emotional, mental, and really spiritual plane is it activates the vital life force. That's the healer that Hippocrates was talking about, that we all have within us. It activates the vital life force on all the levels, not just the physical level. And that's, I think, important. Now, fasting also helps us get in touch with what I call our holy rhythm. In our world society today, I don't want to just focus on the US because that's not accurate. In our world, people have lost touch with their holy rhythm. And one of the things that we focus on in spiritual fasting is reconnecting to your holy rhythm. That's a very, very important thing, because when you get knocked out of your rhythm, nothing is really going to work right. And I think that's important. So another way of talking about it is re-entraining with the life force. So during the fast, as people get in touch with the life force, begin to ask the question, well, how indeed can you stay in touch with the life force? And fasting, as I define it, spiritual fasting is also, how do you reconnect with your soul? Our whole society is like taking us away from the truth of our own soul. Making a pun, people are sold out, okay? We want to reconnect with the soul. And that means the experience of breaking away from the media. So part of our fasting, particularly when we have a retreat setting, is to be away from all media, so we can kind of reorganize our beingness. Okay. Now, during the fast, I am giving what we call Shaktipat or Haniha, or waking what people call Holy Spirit, and that's the spiritual energy that can awaken the deep primordial spiritual force in us, which is known as, in the East, as Kundalini. In Torah tradition, Ruach HaKodesh. Okay, Christian tradition, more the Holy Spirit. So that happens, and that happens by look and by touch. Now on the internet, I obviously can only do it by look, but it does work. So during our fast, even over the internet, we do it by look, and it's kind of a little bit of a mystical process, but it's thousands of years old in that sense. And what I mean by that is that the power of the spiritual energy goes through. It helps burn karmas, but it also helps awaken what we call the Kundalini or the Ruach HaKodesh can get activated. And people in different traditions have talked about it. The Baal Shem Tov, a great mystical, liberated Jewish spiritual teacher in 1698 to 1760, talked about how he activates that in people. Interconnection is what they call it, but a part of his soul goes into the people he's working with, and he didn't use the word burn karma, but we're burning karma not only by the person giving it, but people by fasting and meditating are automatically burning karma, and many of these things come up. So one of the things that's important in the spiritual fasting experience is as things come up, we use whatever's coming up as a way of healing old thought forms, things from past lives, whatever, they come up, and we work with people both in groups, sometimes individually, to support the healing process. That's really, really important.
And you can do that online now as part of it.
Yeah, and it's kind of good that way because everybody's hearing and participating, so it elevates everybody.
Okay.
Because it's more psycho-spiritual.
Right.
Talking and discussing. So it's like one big group process, the online, whereas in the actual physical fast, often you're speaking to people individually, because they want to private, which makes, I understand. But this opens it up to, particularly in these times, to sharing the human experience.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's clear about solitary confinement, also known as lockdowns, is, or relatively speaking, is after 15 days, people lose touch with multiple levels of reality. And so during the sharing that we're doing, and I'm actually doing programs for people all during the week. We have a live with Dr. Gabriel. We have another one called Shakti Hour. And hey, let's share. Let's communicate. Let's be human beings.
Right.
Okay. And I joke about it, but it's actually quite real because it's natural for most people to socialize. And particularly true with children. Their brain development depends on that. So children are being hurt in a pretty big way, but actually I think the rate of suicide for adults has increased like tenfold. Right. It's not a small deal here, okay? So, and I don't know if that statistic is totally accurate, but I've heard that statistic. But we know rate of depression, suicide is significantly increased, but that's a safer way to say it. Yeah. And the fasting does something else, is that when we're taking a lot of toxins, it tends to actually create more depression and dysfunction. So when you remove those toxins, the neurotransmitter systems in the brain begin to rebalance themselves. It takes 4 to 5 days. And everybody starts to feel really good. Why? Well, your neurotransmitters are back in order. And given the body and mind and brain given a chance to heal, mind and brain not being the same, will start to re-equilibrate. And I think that's important. That's why I'm talking about holy rhythm. And we don't naturally, but kind of naturally begin to reconnect with our spirit and reconnect with your soul. To me, that's the most important thing about spiritual fasting, is an opportunity to create a optimal situation to reconnect with your soul.
One thing I would ask is how did you select a length of 7 days?
Their earth cycles, 7 days, 14 days, 21 days are what I call relatively safe. Okay, so on one way, part two, people often live their lives in 7-day cycles called the week, right? So we try to make it so that people have 2 weekends in a week to be, in between to be fasting, so they're not missing a lot of work and they can do different things.
Yeah.
So there's a practical level to it. Now, the final thing is, how long does it take to get the toxins out of your system and begin to re-equilibrate? The minimum fast to have that effect, and when I say fast, I'm talking about taking enemas once or twice a day and a variety of detox things, is 5 days. Usually by 3 and 4 days, a lot of the bowel toxins are removed and start to come out of the system, but usually burning, where people are able to access kind of the deeper awarenesses. Now, of course, some people move much faster than that. But so 7 days gives you a chance to go into detox. Now, some people can detox for 7 days or 2 weeks, but I'm talking about the average, the bell curve average. So usually by 2 to 4 days, the toxins are coming out. Takes that long. Now, I'm not just talking about bowel cleansing. I'm talking about kind of deeper toxins coming out. And then by day 5, 6, and 7, you start actually to go into a higher function. So that's one of the other reasons. That's the minimum. So when people do a 3-day, quote, fast, it's not really a fast, it's a cleanse. When you go at least 5 days, you've now gone through the detox process, which can last as 5 days or 6 days, but 5 days, 4 days, something like that. And you're giving a day or two to kind of get to the higher spaces of rebalancing your neurotransmitters. So that's how I arrived at 7 is pretty much the minimum to get the optimal result in a busy world.
Yeah, we hear a lot of stories about people going on multiple week juice fasts for serious degenerative, life-threatening conditions, and in many cases coming out with those taken care of.
That's a totally different topic. Now, let me explain, because you bring them up. That's a healing of chronic disease fast. And we'll have people, I think the longest was 65 days. It takes a long time to detox and rebuild.
Okay.
So, for example, in Russia with schizophrenia, they basically put people on water fast, and somewhere around 26, 27, 28, up to 32 days is where they begin to heal. That's 65% of schizophrenics were free of their schizophrenia. The different toxins came out and did not relapse.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying, right?
It's really significant. Yeah. They didn't just momentarily get better.
Right. Now, it is not that American psychiatry is off, because in the turn of the 1900s, they used to give people an enema when they came into the mental hospitals, because they got that there was a connection with bowel toxicity and mental toxicity.
Yeah, that disappeared in the 60s or 70s from the Merck manual, I think, right?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure, to be honest, but my point is the Russians understood that this fasting was a powerful way, think 65%, I didn't say something, incurable schizophrenia. 65%.
Okay.
Most schizophrenics. That's pretty impressive. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And if they stayed away, particularly from meat, fish, chicken, and dairy, they were unlikely to relapse. That may take us into a different discussion, so I'm going to hold it there.
Yeah, we've got enough for 10 shows already.
Yeah. So, but clearly they got that they had to stay on, more of a plant-based diet.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Not a relapse. So they were aware of that. So that's on the physical plane. But again, that makes it easier for the Kundalini energy to awaken. You had another question.
Well, actually, yeah, I think you covered most of it in what you said. So that was good.
Okay. So another thing happens. It activates the pleasure centers. When you get all the toxins out of the way, your natural dopamine increases and your pleasure centers are activated. So people feel really good fasting. That's another part of it. Kind of fun to see that. Wow, I feel so alive. Wow, I feel so good. So again, we're talking about the bell curve thing. Some people detox for 2 weeks, but that's rare. Go ahead, Richard.
Well, I'm just going to say that was something that people wouldn't expect based on the conventional training that we've had, that when you starve, you're starving yourself to death. That's what not eating means, and you don't feel very happy.
Right. That's called starvation, not getting organic green juices, meditating twice a day, my wife teaches the yoga, so we have what we call tree yoga,
Right.
People are, taking walks in nature, and it's like group sharing, so we have a lot of people, and you're meditating twice a day. That's different than starving.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds great.
Attitude as well. Okay. So there is truly an antidepressive effect.
Yeah.
And anti-anxiety significantly. And we can say, was that from the food people were eating, or is that from meditating? I think it's from all of that. Okay.
All right.
So in the midst of that, we also ask people in the spiritual fast to try to access their sacred design. If we're going to get in touch with what our soul is and our holy rhythm, each person has a unique purpose on the planet. Now, to be clear, we were not meant to be slaves. We were meant to grow spiritually. Everyone. That's why we're put here on the planet. So all that we're seeing today, it has happened so many times in history, so many times. There's people who want to enslave people and stop their spiritual growth, which is contrary to God's plan.
Right.
We're put here to wake up, period. Okay? And to have these earth experiences as part of the spiritual learning curve. So, that, of course, that's my belief and interpretation, but it's been the belief interpretation for people for thousands and thousands of years. So it's clearly not my idea.
Yeah.
But finding your sacred design, we're all here for a purpose, and we can use the word dharma. I like sacred design because people need to access, why am I here? Besides the general, to wake up spiritually and know God is, well, what is it I'm supposed to be doing that's going to help me wake up? So we ask that question. That's part of fasting is, are you aligned with your sacred design? You're a unique being put on the planet. You have a unique purpose. You have a unique role. You have a unique contribution. Yeah, we're all made in the image of God, but everybody has a different expression of that image of God. And that's, I think, a part of our emphasis when I talk about spiritual fasting is like, well, what am I here for?
Yeah.
Raising all those questions, okay? And when you see the whole person, you're going to reconnect with your soul. We're going to look for your sacred design. We're going to work on contacting a holy rhythm. Fasting is the best setting for that. Spiritual fasting, where we're doing all these inner directed questions, is a very, how I put it, it's a very powerful way of helping people make contact with it. Okay? And that's the key. So sacred, I only use the word holy rhythm, and I mentioned that. And truly awakening spiritual awareness, because we're so overwhelmed with the stuff of the world. The stimulus, outer directed stimulus of the world, we get captured in it. And we're talking all the things that are going on. It isn't just, the whole COVID thing or TV thing. It's everything. People are outer directed. So fasting, spiritual fasting, I want to keep qualifying that, is a very specific effort to get in touch with what life is about. And that's how I do the spiritual fasting. Okay. I'm not making an advertisement, but we're doing it twice a year, and you can go to drcousens.com or treelife.mn.co and tune in when the next fast is. I don't know when this is coming out, but we're having it on a regular basis.
Treeoflife. What? Let's go over that again.
Mighty Networks, MN, Mighty Networks, .co.
CO. Okay. And what was the other one? Dr. Cousens?
.com. That's an easier one to remember, obviously.
And that's DR, no periods, right? And
Correct.
COUSENS.com.
Yeah.
Got it.
So, again, I want to point out, this is not new. Elijah fasted, Moshe fasted, Yehoshua fasted, Jesus fasted. This is not a new idea. So right. I don't claim it. All I claim is I'm paying attention. I'm studying spiritual life over at least 5,000 years. The rishis fasted. So I'm looking at what worked. And it's like, wow, this is universal. They're all doing these things. So I think that's the key point I'm making here. If you get what I'm saying, is that this is probably the oldest spiritual practice besides meditating. And I think one of the questions we ask people is, do you sacrifice? This isn't a seeing question, really.
Okay.
At least according to Dr. Seke, do you sacrifice the eternal for that which dieth in a day? Most people do. And with the fasting, it's about, hey, well, we're not going to keep sacrificing the eternal. That's why I'm here, and move into honoring our purpose, our spiritual life purpose, and not sacrificing that anymore.
So if I understand what you're saying, the change in perception that happens when you're fasting allows you to evaluate your choices of what to do during the day in light of what's in harmony with spirit and what isn't. Is that right?
Well, I don't know about do during the day, how to live your life. I make it a little bit big, but I know that's what you're saying.
I'm saying moment to moment in your life.
Yeah, it's moment in the moment, but guided by your sense of your bigger purpose as you as a unique individual, what we call dharma, right livelihood, but also guided by how to live in a way that helps you make that connection with your soul and with God.
And your ability to perceive that gets better by fasting.
Well, I'm making a qualification.
Spiritual fasting.
Question, with spiritual fasting, that's the emphasis. There are people who just fast, they can do a water fast, they suffer, you get healed often with fasting, and that's good. This is not what we're doing. So we add the spiritual structure that changes why we're doing it. And that's why I started at what makes it spiritual fasting? Your intention. Your intention is to wake up.
Okay.
To come alive. And that's also why I'm a little hesitant about water fasting, although I've done it, as I said, a 21-day, is that people actually feel a little bit often very exhausted. And so they don't feel alive. And so one of my messages, we're going to do half diluted juices and create a situation where you're going to be doing the tree yoga, wife's teaching, we're meditating, we're walking, we're sharing. It's about becoming alive.
Does that exhausted feeling when you want to stay in bed with the water fasting, does that stay that way, or does that go away during the later stages?
Again, it depends how toxic you are.
Okay.
So in like the juice fast, people can feel really toxic for, I'm going to say like an average of 3 days. And then you can have other waves like 2 weeks later or something like that. And that's another point I want to make about the 7-day fast that you asked.
Yeah.
As I assessed it, you can do 7 days, 14 days, 21, 40 days. What I have discovered in looking at this over obviously more than a few years here,
right,
40 years, is that the most efficient fasting time is 7 days. I mentioned, because you go through the whole cycle, so the 3-day fast isn't a fast, it's really a detox. But you do a 14-day fast, 21-day fast, and what you see in a way, okay, is you get a lot of mileage from the 7 days. And then it diminishes after that.
Oh, okay.
I'm not talking about healing chronic disease, where, as I say, I've had people fast 65 days or, 40, 50 days. I'm not talking about that. We're talking about rejuvenating. Different concept. How do you become fully alive? Well, you have to detox. You take on this whole lifestyle. I call it the 6 foundations. What is that? Okay, it's eating 100% plant-based, 80% live, spiritual fasting twice a year for at least 7 days. I will also tell you that, generally speaking, the gains people make last 3 or 4 or 5 months. And when you do this, if you're doing it on a regular basis, you're continually making gains, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Then I suggest, part 2 is doing the different yogas. As I say, we do tree yoga, which Shanti teaches, but also, dance, spiritual dancing, okay, or dancing, okay, or qigong, or tai chi, some kind of energetic to move the prana. Third is charity. Well, that's a little harder to do during a fast, but there are little service and charities to do. Fourth is working with the spiritual teacher. It really helps to have a guide when you're doing a fast. It really does. It's a big. I'm doing a variety of having individuals fasting and so forth. So I'm guiding them over the internet, as well as during the 7-day fast that we do. It really makes a difference to have.
Is that something that's available all the time that you're offering?
Yes.
I want to make it clear, because that's really potentially valuable service that you're talking about. It could apply to a lot of situations. If you want to say what that's appropriate for, maybe for people that don't know.
Well, there's 2 levels of fasting, as I've described. One is spiritual fasting in the sense it's waking up your spirit, it's detoxing physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. When I work with individuals who I feel really, really, really need to fast, and it's not time with the schedule, or they need to go 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Like I have somebody who's doing like 3 weeks right now. I'm meeting with them every few days, and we're doing 0 point, which is a special psycho-spiritual technique that's we've developed. And I'm not just giving support for the fast, but we're working on those psycho-spiritual levels as well. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So I may recommend it for a particular client, or people say I'd like to fast, but I can't make that schedule work. So guide me. And so we set up doing it.
So if anybody wants to know more about that or possibly arrange for that to happen, how do they do it?
Well, good question. They can go to drcousens.com, or they can go to treeoflife.mn.co, or they can go to info@treeoflife.
And is that true if they...
Treeoflife.nu. Sorry.
Tree of Life. Oh, that's a third site, right?
Yeah. That's if people want to become clients, because I'm still doing holistic healing sessions over, again, I see it all progressive. So I don't just see a person once. It's like, okay, we're going to work over the years. I usually start with 2.5 hours, really working with the person, getting a whole program, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual design for them. Okay.
And the way to get to that is, what was that site? treeoflife.nu?
info@treeoflife.nu, like new universe.
Okay, got it.
They can go to drcousens.com and they can get that way too.
Got it. Yeah, but info@treeoflife.nu is a email address.
This appointment. It's a specific appointment.
Yeah, got it. Okay, thanks.
So those are kind of the bigger pictures, and the group process helps because people are influenced by groups in a good way. We know the research shows. I just was reading some studies about people over 65 who are clearly doing better when they're having group process. They have half the amount of depression, half the amount of anxiety. They actually live longer. They actually are happier. All these studies are coming out. And actually, different than even 10 years ago, people over 65 who get married or get in a relationship, let me say that in today's world, actually are also doing much better mentally and emotionally and physically. You add a few years to your life. So there's a few pieces here in the discussion. I just kind of bringing in that helps people see the bigger picture of what we're talking about. So the emotional, mental part is really a big part of, to me, the spiritual fasting, but also the bigger picture. We need to socialize. We need to connect. As I mentioned before, it's really, really, really detrimental to children if they aren't socializing. And I don't consider internet socializing, and the research seems to back what I'm saying.
Yeah.
There has to be an interaction that is person to person. I don't want to make a whole thing, but the research shows that being in school does not really amplify your chance of getting kind of a virus.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, they're having the little kids go to school in these plexiglass cages now.
Yeah, and it's like, wow, that is major, major brainwashing. It doesn't work. It doesn't make any difference because you still breathe the air.
Yeah.
Kind of like medieval superstition. So that's just a point. I mean, really, without getting off topic, but kids have to socialize, adults have to socialize, but it's very critical for kids. We do know the lockdowns have not worked. in over 24 different studies. They don't work. There is a suggestion now that not only don't they work, but they could make people a little sicker. Okay, and the same with masks. It's a way of separating you out. So our kids are being really harmed by this whole process. So I'd like to see the kids back in school, but I'm making a point. Humans need to socialize. Yeah. We're social beings. I mean, yes, there's people like who meditate and do different things, but maybe they're doing it in an ashram. There's still some social connection. So this is very serious what's going on. And why we do the spiritual fasting in groups is it creates a social context that people get a lot of support from each other as well.
So since you're doing this online now with the event that's coming up, can you explain a little bit more graphically how it works? Like once people sign up, are there periodic meetings during the 7 days whenever everybody can see you or see each other, or how's it going to work?
Multiple times in a day.
Say that again. You were cut off for a minute. Say that again.
Multiple times during the day. We meet for check-in. We meet for spiritual questions and answers. We have 2 meditations plus questions and answers, and we have support groups. And I have my assistant here, Olga, is supporting people during the fast. So there's multiple things. And at the Tree of Life community, so that's treeoflife.mn.co, we have a special space where people can talk to each other as well.
Okay, great.
Because our emphasis is a lot, but they would be seeing me in general, 4 or 5 times, during the day.
That's a lot. And that goes on for 7 days.
Yeah, well, really, we have a day for coming off the fast, and the evening before we have a discussion of how to fast. So it's more than 7 days. It's okay. more like 9 days in reality.
And which of the sites that we mentioned, there were 2 main different sites, and which one of those is for signing up for the fast?
Well, either one, treeoflife.mn.co or drcousens.com. Either one works.
Okay, great.
So I consider fasting extremely important. I have fasted a minimum of twice a year for a week since the late 80s. I think it makes a really big difference.
Yeah.
The body needs in our world today, different than maybe 40, 50, 60 years ago. But again, people were fasting, right?
Mm-hmm.
The body needs time to detox physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. So, wow, you want to do that. So the minimum I see is 1 week, twice a year. I mean, I used to do 4 weeks a year. And I research on myself. I was actually doing 6 times a year. But when I really asked the hard question, what's your optimum? 1 week, twice a year it gives you the optimum results with the minimum amount of effort, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, because we have to ask that question. A lot of people just love getting high with the fast, and that's fine. But I'm looking at how to serve humanity here, and this works.
Right. And you're fairly specific about what kind of juice that should be during that time, right?
Organic, fresh. We make it up that day.
Organic, fresh. And what kind of things are in the juice?
We will use some condiments. One of the condiments is cayenne, because it kind of clears sinuses and it kind of helps clear the whole system. Another is ginger, which is maybe the best thing for the fasting. It's anti-inflammatory. Again, clears, activates the digestion. We will use a few other little herbs, but those are the 2 big players. We also use my fasting elixir, which is a combination of gem elixirs and flower essences.
Uh-huh.
And we also have a tachyon, special tachyonized herbs for fasting that work on focus on the liver and the kidneys because they're the organs that are hit the most.
Okay. And what's the main body of the juice? I mean, what kind of vegetables are in that?
Well, we start with juicy vegetables, and that's going to be celery and cucumber.
Okay, right.
Usually the base, okay, because it's got the most water. And then whatever greens we can get.
Right, but it's not primarily bitter green juice or anything like that.
No, but now that you asked the question, right?
Yeah.
We have a little apple juice for taste because sometimes I like it just straight green. Some people like a little touch, so it's not quite so strong. Touch of apple juice, freshly juiced apple juice or things like that. So we do have that as a condiment. I think that's the key word there.
Right. Neat. Trying to think of anything we didn't cover. Obviously, it would be good for anybody that can fit it into their schedule to participate. What about people who are saying, well, I don't just have a week off work, so is it practical to do when I'm still working, or what do you think about that?
Well, it's really an excellent question. Physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. So those are my 4 levels of detox.
Right.
You can do a physical fast and keep working. But when you're working, it's much harder to do emotional and mental and spiritual detox.
Yeah.
And so I generally don't recommend it. Now, that doesn't mean people do it or they work half time. I have a lot of people that work half time. It's not perfect, but it's much better than not fasting.
Right. And a lot of people now...
I really don't recommend working full time because you don't release emotionally and mentally when you're still working.
Yeah, because you're holding yourself in your usual routine and the emotions that go with it and everything. It's probably a little bit easier for people to work some of the time while they're fasting since they're working remotely online rather than going and, interacting with a physical job.
I mean, that's true. And the same point, you're still holding a certain mindset that doesn't let go.
Your focus and your intent are wrapped up with the work.
Yeah. And so I do recommend actually taking better than just a physical cleanse, really stopping what you're doing.
Okay.
And, take care of the minimum of business.
Right.
Right. And see what the problem is, as you say, how do we fit it in our schedule? And I'm going to say it a different way. How do we fit our schedule into what we need to do in life to maintain physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual well-being?
That's a really important subject. I mean, just because you have to go back to work ideally should not mean that you have to go back into completely losing touch with yourself, right?
So my point is, during the fast, it's like, what are we trying to do here? So if you're just stuck in work, how do you get in touch with your sacred design? How do you get in touch with your holy rhythm? How do you see where we're going? So by definition, a spiritual fast is different than a physical cleanse.
Right. Well, and for the people that can't get off working full time during that particular week, which is April 26th, what's a backup? I mean, they could arrange with you to supervise a fast at a different time when they're free, right? Something like that.
So that's the best alternative. The second best alternative is at least try to work half time. Now, I find that if you go half time, you can get by, so to speak. It's not
a benefit.
It's really better than not doing.
Yeah. Okay. And if they have questions about it, They can just write. There's probably a contact form on the site, right?
Yes, and that's at, again, drcousens.com. They can ask questions, or info@treeoflife.nu, or the Tree of Life community. So what we've done really is, you've heard me say again how important socializing is.
Right.
For human beings. And I'm looking at that and I'm looking, well, what are they doing? They have a design not based in any science, okay? Let's get very clear. Lockdowns have not worked, period, okay? Yeah. And they've never been used before. I know in Sweden they don't have lockdowns and their results are just as, good, if not better, in terms of COVID, but it's a whole lot better socially.
Yeah.
Businesses aren't shut down. They're not all going broke. Their society is not being destroyed. Right. Okay. Right. So kind of where I'm going with it is we need to maintain our humanity.
Right.
And the spiritual fasting in a very difficult world is an opportunity to reconnect with our humanity, our holy rhythm, our soul, and it's sustaining in that way. That's really the message I'm giving.
Well, and that has an effect on the outside world, too.
Absolutely. And we are social beings. And so the game plan is to make us all afraid of each other and,
right.
That kind of thing. And there's no science behind that whatsoever.
Right. Right.
There's no science. There's been 14 studies with masks. Makes no difference. The Danish study being the biggest study. It doesn't make no difference. So what's going on? Well, I don't want to get into it so much as saying the spiritual fasting is a way of healing from that.
Right. Right. No, that's great. So if we had to say in the last minute or two here what people should primarily remember from all of this as a starting point, how would you say that?
We came to the earth to develop spiritually. The most important thing is to do that. Part of that is our life work, or what we call Dharma. Another part of what we're dealing today is maintaining contact with our soul so that our soul force can expand, which is the natural thing that's meant to be.
Right.
And so it's important to maintain those functions. It's important to communicate with each other. It's important to maintain our humanity, which the forces are making people think, no, we don't want to be human. We may get COVID, which is not exactly the mortality is 0.1, depending on who it is, to 0.3%. It's like, what? Okay, you're going to give up your humanity? Well, there's a risk in living.
Yeah. Everybody who's tried it has died, actually.
Right. That's very good. I didn't think about that one. So what I'm saying is the most important thing is to deepen your connection with your soul. Remember our purpose for being here on the planet. Let go of the hyped up fear about death and that kind of thing, because it's hyped. As you say, it happens to most everybody here on the planet. So live your life fully, and this helps you get in touch with your sacred design and with your soul. That's the most important thing. That's what keeps people alive. Now, we go back to Exodus. Well, 80% of the people didn't make it. They didn't want to leave Egypt. 80%. They died in a plague of darkness, which is what we're facing now, a plague of darkness, metaphorically.
Right.
20% said, no, we're going to focus on God. We're going to walk through the sea of reeds. The sea is going to open, and we're creating a new us. Not everybody's ready to do that. So if we see this as a spiritual test, not as poor me, but as a spiritual test, this is a phenomenal opportunity to make a choice of what we think our life is about. Is it about fear of death, and that's how I'm going to live my life based on that? Or am I going to say, wow, I want to be fully alive. I want to know the divine. I want to, really be so full, so to speak.
Right.
And people are being given a choice. Okay, and that is the beauty, the silver lining in this difficult situation is we have to make a choice for life or to give up our God-given right to evolve spiritually.
Right. This is an ongoing subject. I mean,
so may everybody be blessed. Yeah, it sure is. So may everybody be blessed of us that we choose life. We choose love. I'm just waiting. Okay, that we choose life, that we choose love, and we choose to more deeply connect with our souls and ultimately the divine in however way people, know it or experience it.
Yeah.
Those are the choices that are being forced on us today. So choose life, choose love, choose aliveness, and choose the divine.
Yeah.
May everybody be blessed with the power to do that. All the listeners, you folks, myself. So, aho.
Sounds good. We have a lot more to do for follow-up. I hope you'll be able to come back before long. And
I'm happy, Richard. I'm happy. I always like working with you. You have such deep understanding and deep insight. You ask really good questions. It's definitely a win-win.
it's fun. I mean, regardless of anything else, it's really enjoyable. Right. So, okay. Well, thank you. And hold on, and we'll say goodbye in the break here. So there goes Dr. Gabriel Cousens, as I was mentioning to Doug before, not the average doctor that you run into all the time. I thought the dancing was great, a good illustration of the difference, you might say. And I really appreciate people like him in the world right now. That not everybody's a hypnotized zombie, and there's hope for all of us to get back to our forgotten normal state, which would be strong enough to, I think, still it not being too late to turn things around. We have a lot more power in that direction than we have any idea. And I'm really sure on that. It's not something I read somewhere. I can feel that directly, and I hope that you can as well. And talking to somebody like Dr. Cousens is encouragement to get back to, uncovering who you actually are, which is the beginning of understanding everything else. It's all connected for sure. Anyway, to go over his sites, treeoflife.mn, like Minnesota, .co, not .com, but .co, Tree of Life. I wrote it down, .mn.co, or Dr. Cousens, COUSENS.com. And then he gave an email address too for inquiries about the fasting or his other programs, which go on all the time, and you might want to find out about that stuff. info@treeoflife.nu. And as he said, like New Universe, NU. What else? The fast that he was talking about is starting on April 26th. It's 7 days. And still plenty of time to sign up to participate in that. Or if you're hearing about this after that fast happens, then there's going to be others periodically offered, and you can find out about that through the sites that we just mentioned. He also does individual consulting and appointments over the internet, which could be quite valuable in a lot of different cases. Main thing is he's talking about the potential that each one of us is walking around with, and that getting to it, not intellectually or in theory, or belief, but actually experiencing the energy level of it is partly physical detox and upgrading lifestyle, changing intent. Intent is a whole subject. We talk a lot about it in Planetary Healing Club. It's probably one of the most powerful faculties that every one of us has, and we're using it every day, all the time, generally in a really scattered manner, or focusing on things we're worried about. So we help them get more intense and make things that we are concerned about into self-fulfilling prophecies. And we can use it the other way whenever we get the idea that that might be a better thing to do. A lot is in our hands, even in the current world situation. So remember, this is our Sunday show. We have the Saturday show going on once a week, and that is 4:30 p.m. Pacific time, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, and then half an hour after it ends, which is 6 o'clock, I think I got it right this time, p.m. Pacific, and 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern U.S. time, is Planetary Healing Club, where we go a lot deeper into all this stuff and practical ways to use it for specific life transformation in your own situation. So if that's of interest to you, that's accessible through planetaryhealingclub.com, which is one page of our LostArtsRadio.com website. And the website in general is good to stay in touch with, LostArtsRadio.com, as platforms that we show up on change. Censoring platforms get more intense. Non-censoring ones get more available. And you can stay in touch on the main website, LostArtsRadio.com. And if you want to support us and you think what we're doing is useful to you or worthwhile, donations are really appreciated to our nonprofit, which runs the whole thing. And that is donate button at LostArtsRadio.com or donate at LostArtsResearchInstitute.org or at subscribestar.com/LostArtsRadio. Not if you're struggling for survival, obviously don't do that. Just share the show with other people and help us get around the censorship. That would be great. And if you have the physical resource and you want to financially help us, that'll help us keep going and free up projects that we've got on hold or are waiting for funding. That would be great. I think that's about it. And mainly take care of yourself, because you've got immense potential to help the rest of the world by what you do in yourself. It affects everybody, physically and on all the other levels as well. So get back your health as much as you can under the circumstances, and see where your intent and your imagination is going all the time, because they're very powerful. No point in having them work negatively against you, because they can be great boons to everything that you're doing and everybody else. So take good care of yourself, be an example of whatever you want, and I think that's about it. I'll look forward to seeing you here again next time. Have a good week, and we'll see you at the next show. Talk to you soon.